Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another STC webinar. My name is Kalina. I'm the Events Partnerships and Marketing Manager at the STC. Today we're talking about opportunities in advanced air mobility. We'll do a 45-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute Q&A. Just before we start, I want to remind everyone that today's session is being recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube channel a bit later on today. And before I hand over to Clive and Nicola, I also wanted to say a special thank you to our sponsor, Hexagon, who are supporting today's event. They are a global leader in digital reality solutions, softwares, and autonomous technology. And you can find out more about the amazing work they do, especially around manufacturing technology and intelligence, on their website. So without further ado, I will hand over to Clive for him to start and tell you a little bit more about advanced air mobility.
Thank you, Galina, and good morning, everybody. I'm Clive Lewis, a Technology Manager at the Midlands Aerospace Alliance. And I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the opportunities in the advanced air mobility market. And following that, Nicola, my colleague, will give you an introduction to the Aerospace Unlocking Potential Programme that could give you support to enter or develop innovation in the advanced air mobility market. So I'm guessing you're here because you're interested in the advanced air mobility sector and you want to know if your products or services could succeed. And the market is unusual for aerospace in that it is relatively open to entrants from other sectors, and a lot of those other sectors have capability that is very relevant to it. So last year, ADS, the largest trade association in the UK for aerospace, defence, security and space, produced this outlook for the advanced air mobility market, covering all kinds of passenger flying vehicles. And rather than create a new forecast, it took a number of forecasts that were already out there in the public domain. And the grey area there shows the spread of these forecasts, which is around 2 orders of magnitude. And the organisations and the methodologies used were reviewed, and they all look good. You know, the organisations that produce these forecasts are very credible organisations, people like PwC, Oliver Wyman, Roland Berger, Porsche Consulting. So have they got it all wrong? Why is there this huge variance? Well, the fact is that this market doesn't exist yet. It's still emerging. So each of these forecasts, although they might have great methodology, have used some fairly base assumptions in terms of adoption and rate of growth of the market. So that's led to this range of forecasts. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that there's a high level of uncertainty in how big the market's going to be. But certainly it is expected to grow very rapidly. And ADS recommended that orange best fit line through that range of forecasts, which, although much lower than the highest forecast, is still showing a value of around $500 billion in 2040 and about half of that in 2035. So a sizable market. But this isn't a new idea. That Convair flying car on the left, that flew in 1947, and even if I had been alive then, I wouldn't have got in it. Not something I would have wanted to fly in. And there may be a few others on the call that are mature enough to remember the Jetsons cartoon in which everybody had one of these air mobility vehicles on their front lawn, and that's how we all got around. Next, please, Nicola. So we've had it in our minds for a long time. So why is it happening now? Well, technology. First of all, the density of electrical storage has increased of late. So we've got more kilowatt hours in a battery, basically. Not only that, electrical power density of electrical machines has increased, so we can get more watts in a motor for a particular weight and size. Improvements in automation will help make these vehicles easy to fly, so the training and certification of pilots will be easier, making them more readily available. And ultimately, it is envisaged that this market will use autonomy to fly vehicles without pilots, and that really helps their business case. You know, if you had, say, you had a 4-passenger vehicle, if one of them's the pilot, you've added a great deal of cost and taken away a great deal of revenue. And lastly, big data. That's gives us more possibility for managing the flying environment in terms of air traffic management, and for that interface between the users of the vehicles and the operators, things like ride sharing, ride hailing. And next, congestion. So it's reckoned that in the UK, road delay costs about $9 billion a year. And in the EU, the figure is 100 billion euros. The US, the study that I found estimates that at $88 billion. That sounds a bit low compared to the others. And this is going to get worse. By 2050, it's reckoned that 68% of us will be living in cities across the globe. And that's considerably more than today. And lastly, sustainability. So transport emits about a quarter of all CO2 emissions at the moment. And air transport is a significant portion of that. And as other sectors decarbonise, that air transport becomes more conspicuous. Next, please, Nicola. And this has led to hundreds of development projects in this space. And I heard a latest count of that somebody did 375 projects. My life's too short for me to go out and verify that figure. There are hundreds. Next, please. And there are multiple configurations and use cases. The intercity case is envisaged as a public service in a dense corridor. So this could be, say, a transfer from an airport to a city on a predetermined route to the corridor and a regular schedule and set stops. Next, the around the city point-to-point case, and this is the sort of poster case for this market. Door-to-door, on-demand, mobility as a service, air Uber kind of service in the urban environment. Now, this is the most difficult case to make work for a number of reasons. The safety case is one of the biggest ones. These will be flying above people's heads, between tall buildings, which generate extreme wind effects, and it has an impact on privacy. If you live in a tall building in London, you've got a penthouse suite, you don't really want somebody in one of these looking in your window. So there are a lot of challenges for that particular use case. More likely in the near term is this sub-regional transport case, which could be fixed wing or rotary wing. It could use existing airfields for conventional takeoff and landing or vertical landing, plus vertiports and pop-up vertipads. Maybe we schedule thin routes and some chartering on demand use. This is a lot more likely in the near term because there's less new technology and configuration of aircraft to be regulated and certified. Plus the business case is very well understood and much of the infrastructure is already there. High net worth individuals or toys for the rich. So if somebody makes a flying sports car, somebody's going to buy it. They've got enough money, and it gives you better bragging rights than a Ferrari on your drive. And there's a lot more affordable and easier to operate than a helicopter. And lastly, the emergency services and parapublic transport case. There are already a lot of demonstrations and experiments going on using drones to move medical supplies, samples, organs in this area, and also defibrillators. You can imagine if you were in the middle of nowhere and with some friends and somebody had a heart attack, then getting a defibrillator to them by drone is a good possibility. But that's starting to move into thoughts of what it could do for passenger carrying uses in this space. So that could be medical extraction or getting a first responder to a situation. But it's not just about the aircraft. On the left here, we've got that flying hardware, the aircraft systems that are pulled together by the vehicle integrator. On top of that, we've got significant demand expected and a value expected in the operations, the infrastructure to operate these vehicles, landing and takeoff places, the charging facilities or refueling if they're hydrogen powered, air traffic management, and ultimately unmanned traffic management to cope with increased volume in the skies. And the operators, there will be probably a different kind of airline that may operate these services, and they consume many, many services. Lots of support services like repair and insurance, all those kind of things. And lastly, data management, which is a pretty big part of this sector that enables the air traffic management. It also enables that user to operator interface with things like ride sharing and ride hailing. So where's the industry at? It's a pretty standard development process here. You click on the next, great. So at the moment, like I said, there are hundreds of projects that have been in the concept phase, and the majority of those will never leave a computer screen. A smaller number of those have gone on to design and development and to create prototypes, and a much smaller number of those are actually in certification now. Several projects have got their certification plans approved and are actually going through the process with the regulator, but none have reached production yet. So that's where this sector is, and looking at the different vehicles within this process allows you to understand which might be good targets for you. And that was all I wanted to say as a brief introduction to the market. I'm going to hand over to Nicola now, who's going to tell you about aerospace unlocking potential.
Thank you, Clive. So before we go to questions, I just wanted to give everyone an overview of the Aerospace Up programme, which is something that both Clive and I are involved with as technology managers. And it's really all about supporting innovation for Midlands-based small and medium enterprises. The programme is about £20 million in size. As I said, it supports SMEs in any sector. It's not just aerospace, but it is those that are interested in aerospace and aviation supply chain or are part of those supply chains already. It's delivered by the University of Nottingham in partnership with us at the Midlands Aerospace Alliance, and the money is coming from the European Regional Development Fund. So if you're a Midlands-based SME and you are interested in innovation or any support around getting into aerospace or advanced air mobility, if you become part of the Aerospace Up programme, our expert help is free of charge. And just to explain the eligibility, a small and medium-sized business in the eyes of the ERDF is one that has less than 250 employees. It has less than 50 million euro annual turnover and less than 43 million euro annual balance sheet, and not owned more than 25% by an enterprise that is in itself not an SME. So if you are fairly independent. In terms of what we mean by Midlands based, the map on the right shows approximately that you've got a list there of the local areas that we cover. So you can see that it covers most of the Midlands, East Midlands and West Midlands. I'll just leave it there for a sec for you to have a look. Okay, so in terms of what support we actually offer through Aerospace Up, we can provide innovation grants. We're already a fair way through the programme, so depending on which geographical area you sit in, there's a different amount of money left. I personally am familiar with the Coventry and Warwickshire and Black Country areas, and in those areas we've got probably an average of about 30 to 40,000 pounds per project left now. There are some areas such as Greater Birmingham which have more and some which have less. You'd have to really inquire about what was available. We also provide access to aerospace experts. We have, amongst our 13 technology managers, we have experts in various fields. Obviously, Clive is the expert in advanced air mobility, but we have experts in entry into aerospace, digitisation and other areas. We also offer you access to academics, to university facilities, and you can also get student placements through the programme. We also have a lot of networking events. We try to run peer networking groups around common themes and a lot of online workshops, which are very easy to access. And we can also give tailored one-to-one expert help in a variety of areas, and I'll give you an idea of some of those. So a bit more detail about the innovation grants. The projects do need to be something innovative, so that can be a product, but it could equally be a service or a process that is new to your business. It needs to have a direct link into aerospace or aviation, in the sense that it needs to be able to be applicable to those, but we are welcoming SMEs from across different sectors. And the funding rate depends on which geographical area you're in, but it's either nearly 43% or nearly 53%, depending on the area. So you would have to put in your own money as well to nearly an equal level. We do like to have an end user, or at least a potential end user identified, but it's not essential. And you will receive the support of one of our technology managers to put in your bid and throughout the funding process if you are successful. And we do have a very rolling fast track application process. It is very, very simple. The grants cover consumables, materials costs, travel and so on, as well as equipment, and that includes software as well as machines. You can use third-party services as part of the project, and those can be paid for under the project. So things like getting parts machined, some market research or consultancy. And any staff which you bring into the company specifically for the project, their salary can also be part of the funding. And that can include an undergraduate or a postgraduate student from any university, if that's applicable. So the grant application process, we first of all enrol the company, and that's very simple. We simply ask for some questions about the company to be answered so that we can check eligibility, and as long as you are eligible, you can be enrolled. After that point, you can put in an expression of interest, which has the background, the introduction to the project, what the project expects to achieve and how it's going to go about it, and how much funding you're looking for. And we actually have weekly reviews by the University of Nottingham and the MAA on those expressions of interest, so that we can get them moving very quickly. And indeed, we can go through to full proposal if it's looking promising very quickly as well. We have had an example where we managed to get through a project in 5 days, because it was quite time critical and needed to get launched quickly to be able to take advantage of some things that were going on in the market at the time. So it's a very it's bureaucratically, it's very light compared to a lot of other funding streams, and the obstacles to entry are quite low. So once the full proposal is through and agreed, and the timing of funding has all been mapped out, then we would go ahead to grant award. And we have higher value or higher complexity projects may have an opportunity for presentation. The grants that we funded to date, just to show you the mix, have been for all sorts of reasons. So some of them are as simple as new tooling to enable a company to innovate and maybe to enter into a slightly different market. We have a large proportion are around manufacturing processes. On the yellow segment on the right there, 19% of the funding has gone to projects that are looking at digitisation. And then we have some that are specific to aviation or electrification, and a relatively small amount that are genuinely new products. And I've got an example, or 3 examples of typical projects. So with Eco Smart Systems in Dudley, they were introducing UV sanitizing lamps to the aviation sector. They had an existing technology and they wanted to extend that into the new market. So we gave them an innovation grant to be able to do that. PAK Engineering in Tamworth are looking to adapt their electric vehicle lightweight battery thermal management system for the conditions of aerospace applications, which are more extreme than the applications they have currently. And they are benefiting from some expert support from the Precision Manufacturing Centre at the University of Nottingham to be able to do that under the Aerospace Up programme. And then lastly, High Tech Electronic Materials in Scunthorpe are using a grant, and they are developing some innovative new materials with characteristics which can give electronic shielding and protection on aircraft. So again, extending some existing technology that they had within their company to develop some new materials. So in terms of, I mentioned expert help as well. So as well as the innovation grants, you can actually enroll into the Aerospace Up programme in order to access a number of different types of expert help. And we've got a broad range of experts to help SMEs to grow in the aerospace sector. And these are the expert help support packages that we've identified to date. And they are all, there's some more details of each of these on our website. I'll be giving you the address of that shortly. So we've got a whole package on introducing cross-sector SMEs to aerospace and aviation. We have a package on digitisation. Technology road mapping is something we've done for quite a few companies, working one-to-one with them in developing their roadmaps. We have a lot of expertise in additive manufacturing. We ran a specific funding programme before Aerospace Up called Drama on additive manufacturing, and we have contacts into a number of sites who are experts in this field, including the MTC in Coventry and the University of Nottingham. And that's something where we can offer some online workshops, but also again one-to-one help in looking at road mapping, what you need to do to get into additive manufacturing. Obviously, because the design guidelines are quite different, well, very different from conventional machining. And there's a lot of things to consider before trying to design a part for additive manufacturing. And we can also offer some inroads into using laboratories in places like the MTC to have a go at prototyping some parts. We've got a support package on IP management, and some of that is in the form of workshops online. Some of it is in the form of one-to-one help with looking at what IP you hold in your business. We've got a whole course of aerospace standards and certification lessons, which are delivered online by an aerospace specialist. We've got workshops and one-to-one help on environmental sustainability for SMEs. And we have regular workshops on manufacturing specialisms, and we can also offer some specialist support there. And lastly, and the one that's apposite to what we've just been talking about, is a support package around entering the advanced air mobility market. And as I've mentioned whilst talking about those, some of these are delivered as one-to-one, some of them are delivered through webinars, workshops, or events where we are talking one to many, and there's options for what you can access. So all of those expert packages you can find on our website, which is www.aerospaceup.com. There is a tab on that website called Expert Help, and you can go into each of those packages to see a bit more of a description of what they involve. There's also a tab called Events, where you can see what's coming up soon. For example, Clive gave this webinar essentially this morning, so his voice is going to be a bit tired by the end of this. But we have lots of other webinars, workshops and events that you can access once you're enrolled on the programme. So I've left you our contacts there, both our emails and addresses, and I think Galina is going to be circulating these. Or you can contact the general team at Aerospace Up at nottingham.ac.uk. That gets through to the admin team at the University of Nottingham, who will pass on your query to the relevant technology manager. We'd also like to encourage you to think about, are there other SMEs that you're aware of, possibly SMEs within your own supply chain, or SMEs that you are in contact with, who might be interested in this. So that's as much as I was going to say. I'll have a look at questions next, and then we do have some reserved slides if we've got specific questions. So I can see first question from Denise Pasquet. Given that ERDF funding will be coming to an end, what's the lead time? Okay, so that's a really good question and very, very timely for us. We have actually just won an extension to this programme. We were going to have to finish in September, but we've got an extension through to June 2023. So that gives us all some breathing space to get some more innovation projects into the pipeline, and we don't have to rush to get the funding signed off before then. And of course, the expert packages will continue right to the end of the programme. So hopefully that answers your question. Andy Long, is there a directory of companies looking for skills or technology, for example, collaboration opportunities? We don't have a directory as such. We have a lot of contacts around aerospace, and we're always looking for collaboration opportunities. We advise, we are able to do a little bit of matchmaking. What we tend to do more is facilitate networking and events in which companies can meet each other. But we do sometimes get, within the Midlands, we've obviously got a few tier 1 OEM organisations. We've got Moog, Meggitt, Rolls-Royce, and sometimes they will come to us and say, we've got something, we've got a few innovations, a few ideas, we're looking for companies to help us with that. And then we will do a bit of a networking exercise to put them in touch with companies that are either members of the MAA or have enrolled into Aerospace Up, and we've become familiar with them. We know what their capabilities are, and we can therefore make that introduction. So we do a bit of that ourselves, but I wouldn't say we've got a formal directory as such.
In this particular advanced air mobility space, I am going around some of the tier ones and airframers to canvass any particular needs they have to get their shopping list. And although it wouldn't be appropriate for us to share those publicly, we are then trying to, as Nicola said, matchmake those needs with companies that are in the Midlands. And they may be companies that are not yet in Aerospace Up, but this will be the thing that will make it worth actually taking up Aerospace Up for them.
Thank you, Clive.
It's really useful, both. Thank you. We would like to encourage a bit more questions from our attendees. If there's anything else that you would like to ask at present, please feel free to either jump in and ask in person or submit your questions via the chat.
I wonder if maybe while people are thinking about questions, we could ask Clive to tell us a bit more about the AAM support package, if you don't mind, Clive.
Not at all. So we've got an expert support package, particularly for advanced air mobility, which is flexible, but here's a sample of what it might look like. So step one would be an hour and a half online meeting that would be much more in depth than what you've just seen. So that'll give you more understanding of those different segments and opportunities and the scale and the timing of the different segments and some of the challenges that they face. Give us an understanding of your capability, and then we'd have a discussion around where there may be some obvious areas of opportunity. And the second step, you're not committed to going all the way through this. It's up to you. But the second step could be a workshop on your site, which would be expertly facilitated to run you through some strategy tools, including SWOT and then another one called TOES, which you may not have come across, to match up your capability with market demand and prioritise what a strategy could be for you. And then lastly, helping you plan the entry. And in that plan, it's quite possible that might involve other Aerospace Up supports. You may need to do some technology road mapping, for example, or to acquire some aerospace standards. So that could well lead to other bits of Aerospace Up. But to get access to this programme, you only need to enrol. There's no more challenging application than that. Enrolment is very simple and very fast. The form is little more than contact details, and they usually get turned around within a day or two. Whether you're eligible or not as a Midlands SME, and then you have access to this support straight away. That market introduction workshop would look at different bits of more deep information, largely from that report that ADS published. One of the reasons for that is that with another hat on, I wrote that report, so the information is very familiar to me. Next. And this is what that facilitated workshop could look like. Doing your SWOT, turning that into what's called a TOES, which is a good way of generating strategies out of it, and then prioritising. And lastly, planning your entry, setting your goals, step-by-step of planning, what we needed to be done to achieve those, and like I said, could be more Aerospace Up Supports.
Thank you both. That's been really interesting. I think we haven't received any further questions, so we'll allow another couple of minutes. But while we wait, I just wanted to remind everyone that those slides will be shared with you following the event, so you have access to the contact details for both Clive and Nicola, and you can approach them with further questions if anything pops into your head after the event and you've had a bit of a time to take it all in. So if there's nothing else that we need to discuss today, I would like to say a big thank you to all of you for joining us today, and please stay in touch. The recording of today's event will be available for you to view on demand, so feel free to share that with any of your colleagues who might find it useful. And as Clive and Nicola both mentioned, it would be great if you can share it with other SMEs who might be interested. We did just receive another question as we were chatting. Is it acceptable for an organization to have head office in, say, London, but subsite within the region?
Yes, as long as the company is an SME, you can use a subsite address. It's particularly useful if you're going to do some or all of the work at that subsite address. So where your head office is not really important, and what's more important to us is where the work's going to be done, and that you do have a presence in the Midlands. So I think it's worth looking into, and we can do a quick eligibility check for you.
That's great, thank you. Great. So again, thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you at our next webinar.
And thank you from us, Galina. Thank you.